Hello and welcome to the Workwise for Screen podcast, created to help our screen industries better look after all the people their businesses depend on.
And stay on safe legal ground. It's part of a growing collection of practical resources and guidance that you can dip into without it taking you forever or costing you anything. It's supported by the BFI, awarding national lottery funding.
We'll be talking with people across production, distribution and exhibition, animation, VFX and gaming about the challenges to well-being we face when deadlines and budgets are tight, and how, most importantly, to improve things. We are your hosts, Tacita Small from the Small HR Company, the HR for Entertainment one,
and Keith Arrowsmith, the legal one, a creative industries solicitor and programme director for Workwise for Screen.
Let's set the stage for today's episode, where we have a conversation with Arit Eminue.
Arit's a talent and inclusion specialist with deep experience across the creative industries. She's the founder of Diva Apprenticeships, which ran for over 14 years and supported over 2,000 individuals from underrepresented backgrounds into roles at leading media and entertainment companies. She's known for her strategic work developing inclusive pathways into film, TV, music and publishing, and for challenging institutional structures from the inside out.
And here's our conversation with Arit.
Tell us a little bit about how you started up the business and what inspires you to make a difference in the screen sector.
Mainly because I always wanted to work for myself and to be recognized for doing something good. But it kind of morphed into what it was because I'd graduated from the National Film and TV School, and graduating from the NFTS gave me a taste of nepotism, and it was really sweet, in the sense that it opened doors and got me into rooms that I would not have gotten into had I not gone to that school, if I'm honest. And that was in the early noughties. And I'm culturally mixed. So I'm a British-born Nigerian who grew up working class in the Northeast. So I'm a Geordie girl at heart. And so I recognized having what I used to call like the fairy dust effect. I recognized the barriers people, especially from underrepresented groups, which for me, in terms of my identity then, were race, socioeconomic status, gender, and region. I recognized how we faced access into the industry and the ability to build meaningful careers, because it was very upper class, university educated, and it just wasn't that many people that had similar identities to me. So I guess with Diva, we didn't just build apprenticeship programs. I always saw us as a bridge between industries and talent that had historically not had access to the industry. And that work required like influencing CEOs, kind of elbowing my way into around government tables to influence policy. It meant talking to heads of departments, hiring managers, getting buy-in from leaders before inclusion could become real, because at that point people weren't really thinking about inclusion in the way we do now. It was more kind of, you were dealing with people's biases, not just around race, but also around their socioeconomic status, and with apprenticeships, the educational background as well. So it was a bit like pushing a boulder up a hill. But since I exited Diva in 2020, my focus is much more shifted. So Diva was about helping people get work. Now all the work I do is around talent retention, development, and progression. So I guess it's the same muscle being used, just different terrain. So many of the problems that I was dealing with back then around lack of transparency, reactive leadership, fragile cultures, and fragile egos show up even more sharply the higher up the ladder you climb. And so I think that's one of the reasons why I started the leadership event that I do on a yearly basis, the High Potential Talent Summit, to move the conversation between entry level to focus on the people who have the power to make decisions.
If we could look a little bit more at the apprenticeship piece, it'd be good to understand from your perspective where people lean more and maybe why when we look at apprenticeships and internships. Because I think that sometimes people wouldn't necessarily think of an apprenticeship in the way that we could, and then lean more towards internships. So it'd be good to hear a little bit more about those two from you and what you saw, what you see.
There's always that learning piece in the difference between apprenticeships, not just in terms of the structure of the program, which is much more structured than an internship where you bring people in and some may have formal learning, some may not. But it was more on around the biases around the apprentice themselves. So people used to think, oh well, they must be school dropouts or not have the right kind of attitude or be so far away from the job. Oh, I'm not going to have the time to train that person up. And it's like, well, no, people are just choosing to learn differently. Not everybody excels within that very traditional, very structured education environment. So I did not do very well at school. But I did go on to university and did my master's degree, but I did those when I was ready and in subjects that were aligned with my interest. So I could relate to apprentices in the sense that, yeah, of course you're bright. Of course you want to, you can do the qualification aspect. You just prefer to learn as you go. So it's a different learning style. So the education piece is trying to challenge the bias that, yeah, just because you have they're opting not to go to university right now, it doesn't mean that they don't have a brain, that they're not smart, that they're not switched on. So I used to have to take apprentices with me to meetings so you could meet an apprentice, see a person, see them in the flesh, and hear them speak to really challenge that bias. And I think that there's a recognition as well that apprenticeships don't work for every single part of the screen industry. So on production, it's a lot trickier. They work more in those kind of support roles where there's a bit of steadiness. So I think a lot of the work that we did, especially when the apprenticeship levy came into play in 2017, was about challenging government and really trying to get some flexibility around the apprenticeship levy, around the apprenticeship standards, which I thought were a lot more flexible than the old frameworks, but still, the whole process of designing them so that they're fit for industry takes so long. So a lot of conversations were part on the policy side and then part on translating policy into language that business owners understand and just this is what you're getting. The more responsibility we took, so in terms of helping with the recruitment, we'll manage that because a lot of businesses in the screen industries are small, they're micro businesses, they just don't have the capacity to recruit. So, okay, we can do the recruitment. And then in that recruitment, we'd be very much trying to broaden up their mindset when it comes to talent acquisition. So they don't have to have gone to a particular school, looking at transferable skills. So we were really selling skills and attitudes more than qualifications. So, which in many ways is what I'm still doing now as we're trying to move, as AI starts to impact the workplace, is that you have to focus on skills because those are your currency, right? And rather than oh, you have to have experience in this, you have to have gone to this school. It's like that doesn't matter anymore. It's really about focusing on that skills piece. So loads of the things that came into play in Diva are still the conversations, it's just a different language, if you want.
So help me out. If we're going to learn that language, where do we start? I know I can go online and download my app to learn how to speak Spanish, but how do I learn to speak to supporting those people who might not have much experience but have loads of skills?
I think I mean, you just said like downloading your app. So I always say like to you, if you're applying for a job, because I try to make things personal to individuals first before you start looking externally, think about yourself. Like pull up a job description, look at it and think, Are you initially worried about the experiences that you don't have or the skills that you don't have, or are you focused on the things that you do bring to the table? So, there's some data that says that women are less likely to apply for jobs if they don't meet 100% of the criteria. Then think about, so if you are looking at a job and think, oh, I don't match, my question would be to you is like, so what skills have you got? What is transferable into that role? And actually, you don't have to have everything on a page, because most of the time when people are recruiting, the job description's like a wish list to Santa Claus. It's like, it's so long, and you've got two different roles in there, two different people, and it's like, what are the non-negotiables? Think about the values of your business. Think about the things that, what, we really need somebody who is, so say if somebody has worked in, I don't know, if you're recruiting a junior role, oh, they've been working in retail. Okay, so they've got customer service skills. They've been speaking to people all of the time. You know that if they've been there for a while, then you know that actually they must be turning up on time. They've been working in a team, so they've got teamwork and skills. They will all transfer. And if they're doing things in their downtime, like I love the additional hobbies and interest. I love that section because you're talking about the things that you do in your downtime. So you might have run events. All of that is learning agility, is having the ability to run with an idea. So it's about thinking beyond just like a tick box. They need to have done this, that, and the other. It's thinking actually more broader. What are the values of the organization? Because you need to recruit around those first, and then thinking about my non-negotiables and try to stick to 3 to 5. What does a person need to really to excel in this environment? And you can, if you still got 10 things, then there's something going on inside the business.
The temptation might well be to throw that kind of job description or role description into one of the online tools and ask a machine to write that job description. Or it might be tempting for the applicant to ask for some help from AI to write the application. So how do you make it personal? How do you help people embed that vision, that kind of passion that you might have for a role into the reality of that process of getting the right people on your team? Or else we're just all going to just ask AI to do it all for us and end up with a very bland job description that anyone can write.
But to be fair, Keith, we've been using Google to do that anyway. Because most people, if they're looking for job descriptions, they hop onto Google. Oh, give me a job description. What should I put in the job description for this? And it's a cut and paste job. The amount of job descriptions that came our way, and I was like, I know you Googled that. Do you know? Because even the language isn't written like, I've talked to you. I've been in your offices. Nobody talks like that. Nobody uses those words. Do you know? You don't talk like that. So I know that you've just used Google. So and before for candidates, there's a ton of CV templates on Google. My YouTube platform is filled with tips on how to do your CVs and what to put and what to say. I think what you have, if you're going to use AI, and I'm not against using that. I think it's the reality of it is people are going to use it. It's a quality of your prompt. So if you write in there, this is a owner-managed business with 5 staff. It's not hierarchical. These are the things we want this person to do. Can you write this as if I'm speaking to a human being? These are our values, and keep it short, keep it succinct, and make me want to apply. So it's about really understanding and giving AI as much information as you can, and just say, this is where we're quite an intergenerational team. We have such and such, I don't know. We finish work early on a Friday. These are the words that we would use to describe ourselves, as much like that, and then you get that, and then it's not like, oh yeah, perfect. Then it's your job to put the human eyes on it and make sure it sounds like you.
Businesses are aware that they don't have to pay apprentices the full national minimum wage.
Mm.
What do you say to that? And has that been a barrier for you? When you were running Diva, it's just an interesting thing to add into the mix.
I mean, we took a view that we wouldn't work with organizations that paid the apprenticeship minimum wage. We set a baseline salary because the way that I look at it is that I had two client groups. So I had employers and, government stakeholders in that camp. And then the apprentices were our clients as well. So it's our job to create an experience that you can afford. You have to know what you stand on, what your values are, what matters to you as a business. And that means, it means some companies won't work with you, but then it means that the ones that you do are going to pay your apprentice as well. So they're more likely to stay in their job and your success and completion rates will be higher, and they'll want to stay with the company. So yeah, we set a baseline salary that would rise, that was just above the national minimum wage. It was in between the national minimum wage and the London living wage. We just set a figure that would just rise with inflation.
And to test that out, were you seeing people on that slightly higher rate of pay succeed in a way that maybe some other apprentices that weren't being valued and weren't being supported might drop out?
What we saw was a wider applicant base. So people from much more diverse backgrounds applied.
So if you want the best possible pool for talent, pay them properly.
Yeah, and I get you've got, we're all juggling budgets and money and stuff, but the thing you don't compromise on is your people. Because if you compromise on the people, you're compromising on productivity and you're compromising on performance and you're compromising on profit.
But we know that the industry, is going through a period of change. The technology is changing faster than ever before. The people in the number of people in the pool is just increasing and increasing. And given we know there's more and more people wanting to work in the sector, but there are more and more people leaving because it doesn't suit them anymore. How do we help businesses, cope with that level of change?
I guess from a skills basis and the way in which we do business, especially when it comes with the influx of AI, is that at the moment, you're right, a lot of the conversation, and rightly so, is focused on the IP, the content production, but we're not really talking enough about the people. Like we need to be asking a lot more about what will our roles for new entrants look like? What are we going to do to upskill middle managers who are stuck between traditional workflows and new tech? Those conversations, so that skills piece comes in. Like really, like with the work that I do now is working with leaders to try to think about what their future business model is going to look like and what that's going to mean from a skills perspective. So if you have tools that can take up the admin, that frees you up to do more. What does that more look like? Equally so, speaking to individual contributors or the people and teams themselves, is like getting them to take ownership of their career development and thinking long term, like, okay, so what do I want to be doing? And where do I need to develop my skills as well? And having those better conversations between managers and their teams around careers, around skills development. And this is where transparency comes into play and being really honest about even what you don't know, but taking your team along with you on that journey. It's about pulling the lens back and really start thinking not even 5 years, but 2 years in smaller chunks, and then having those conversations. It's about talking to your teams and like, where are you getting trapped in the weeds? Because that might be a place where actually we can start looking at automation, and then what would that free you up to do? And having those kind of conversations internally can really start to bring about new ideas, new ways of doing things, because it's not like not dealing with and not looking at AI is going to make it disappear. It's actually here and it's here to stay. I think it's fun. I think it's exciting.
If you like that sort of thing, if it scares you, it really isn't. And I can see how people do get, if you want to call it, left behind or left in the dark or not able to adapt. That's so common. And even tying it back to what we were just talking about with apprenticeships aren't always just for young people. They can be
No, they're
for
not.
apprentices at
Yeah, yeah,
any
yeah.
age. And learning again is something that could definitely someone from any age being an apprentice going into a business and knowing some of this stuff, maybe more so than those that are already there, is another way to inject this safety in it.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Tacita, because it is something that I used to say to people all the time. We are all apprentices, right? We are all apprentices. You can do an apprenticeship right up to MA, master's level. But I think that learning agility and looking at learning is a lifelong endeavor. It's not something that you have to do when you're young and you're at school. We are learning every day in so many different ways. Put yourself in places where, like in that tech space, where people are actually starting to have those big ideas, because we work in silos. So the technology comes and slaps the industry right upside its head, and we're then trying to adapt. Let's go into the tech spaces and be like learning and being part of the innovation and not having to do the backwards reactive. That's, I think, is a shift that we could see more of in the industry.
It was really interesting to hear how Arit had focused on the apprenticeship schemes and how to encourage new apprentices to come from those underrepresented groups. But now she's pivoted to help organisations understand how to make the best use of their apprenticeships.
Yeah, it's such a interesting journey that Arit's been on, but I can imagine for the people that she supported also in understanding apprenticeships within our industry, looking at the varying ways you can become an apprentice, the various ages you can become an apprentice, and then pivoting from looking at so many people she's helped on that level and then transforming that learning herself and for others into what this means for leadership and how leaders can now look at the varying ways to support people coming into the industry.
There's something fascinating about how we build in that sense of continuing learning, that sense of you don't finish when your apprenticeship finishes, but there's all these opportunities to give back to the sector in various different ways, depending on which organisation or which job you happen to have at that particular time. And it doesn't just stop when you become a manager. You can use it once you become a manager to help others.
Our industry moves at the rate of knots and things are always changing. So to embrace the mindset of, I'm always learning, I'm never going to know it all, it's only going to help you when leading others or being led by others, but spreading that mindset around your productions, I suppose it definitely contributes to healthy workspaces.
And it's not just about apprenticeships. You can then use that as a model, but make it apply to anyone, even if it's a short-term work experience. Embedding learning into even those kind of fixed-term contracts or embedding learning into a whole production process feels as though it's equally important and enables people to access learning and training in a much broader sense, which can bring those benefits back to a particular job. Thanks for listening to the Workwise for Screen podcast, supported by the BFI awarding National Lottery funding.
Our online platform provides lots of easy to understand information and invites to our events. Visit our website at workwiseforscreen.org.uk and register for the latest updates.
Please follow us on social media and join in this crucial conversation.
And contact us with suggestions for future episodes, or if you can, support the programme in any other way. This podcast is produced by 1860. Music is by Benjamin Squires.